I'm so excited for today's podcast episode because I just got to sit down with Grace Emmons, who is a Reiki master, a spiritual guide, and an empowerment coach. And her energy is just beautiful. And we speak about how you can tune into your intuition, how you can break limiting beliefs and blocks in your body, and little by little, by tuning in, start creating a life that is in such alignment with your purpose on this earth, and a life that makes you feel joy and at peace and in such deep alignment with your truth. She's also a mother and a wife, and I was very inspired by her way of having chosen to create her daily routine of both being a mother and having deep connection with her children and her husband, but also owning her own business and thriving, helping so many individuals overcome the challenges that they're going through, while also taking the time that is needed for her to stay at the peace and calmness and alignment, as I'm sure you're going to be able to tell when you listen to this episode, because her energy is truly healing and grounded in such a beautiful way. So I'm truly excited for you to listen to this episode. And so without further ado, let's dive into it. Grace Emmons, I am so excited to be chatting with you today. And there's so many different ways I want to go about this conversation today and learn from you, because you are a master in Reiki and an energy healer. And there's so much that I know my audience and myself can take away from your perspective. And I want to start off with speaking about how energy work and spirituality can benefit someone who is wanting to achieve certain goals. Because I know my audience are such high achievers and they have so many things they want to do in life. And I would love to hear your thoughts and your perspective on how the work you do can help them achieve those things that they want in their life.
Yes, definitely. I love this angle because a lot of my clients are high achievers as well. And I am I don't know, sometimes people say like a recovering high achiever, but I'm like, no, I'm still a high achiever, but I think I'm a little more aligned now. Now I'm like an aligned high achiever. So the way I think about it is the work that I do and teach and guide others on, it's really about awakening their intuition and helping them. It's actually all about helping them achieve their goals. So it starts from even just, like the methodology that I kind of move my clients through. It begins with first tapping into what even is your highest vision for your life. Like, what are your goals that are true to your truest self? Right? Because I think we actually take on a lot from society and what we see around us and what we think we should want and what we think we need to achieve based off external validation, right? And why is it that sometimes people achieve they check all the boxes, they get, the good job with the high pay, and they're still not happy? Because maybe the goals they set were from what they think they needed to do rather than actually driven from their own inner knowing and their own intuitive vision for their lives and what I see as the highest path. I see there's like a highest path for everyone that's of the highest good of all and for you. And that's individual for each and every one of us, right?
I love this.
Okay. I was like, am I losing you? No, you're okay.
No, I am all in.
Okay. So first it's like, what even, are these the goals for you? And how can you even set the ones that intuitively are for your highest and best? And then all along the way, it's, achieving them in alignment without burning out, using your intuition to help you and using your, soul blueprint. I use tools like astrology, human design, to help individuals figure out like, how are they meant to achieve those goals, right? And that also looks different for each and every one of us. And sometimes when we, again, are, too focused on comparing ourselves to others, we can get into that overworking, burnout, like being in such an activated stress state all the time. You're never really going to be thriving or fulfilled if that's where you're achieving from. So we shift back to this kind of inner alignment, a more sustainable growth. And, Yeah. And this really applies for the big things and the little things. So whether it's, I work with clients in big life changes where they're trying to make like a career pivot, or they just had a baby and they're trying to figure out like what their new life looks like. And this also applies in the smallest, littlest ways, like, trying to get into the best physical health and well-being, I believe requires a lot of intuitive connection with your own body, right? And asking like, oh, what do I need to eat that's most nourishing for me, rather than relying all on external diets and plans and all of that. So at every level, what we do in the energetic work is really activating your own inner power, inner knowing, inner trust, which allows you to achieve anything and everything in alignment with yourself.
That is beautiful. And I could not agree more. For the person listening right now that may feel they understand it, but they don't know how to tune in to what that looks like for them, how do they create a connection with their intuition and learn what they need for their life when they've been so conditioned to strive, move towards all these things that their family and society have shown them they should be striving for, moving towards?
So the first thing is just, I think of our intuition as you have to build a relationship with it the same as you would with a person, right? So it's spending time with yourself quietly, being willing to ask your intuition for information, being willing to listen, right? I think where a lot of people get hung up is they want to jump right, they're listening and they go, okay, fine, intuition, let me ask you a question. Okay, I didn't receive an answer. Okay, I can't do this. I can't do this, right? And we're so like, we want to just be so quick to say I can or I can't. But this is actually a skill you can build. We all come into the world naturally intuitive. For some of us, it's much like higher of a strength than others, right? So especially for women are naturally intuitive, some of us more than others. Men can also be intuitive. Anybody can learn to be more intuitive, to use their inner knowing, their inner wisdom. We come in with a natural tendency, and then over the course of our lives, we take on societal conditioning, we take on programming of the world around us, we listen to what our parents say, what the teachers tell us, and we end up taking on all this external noise that essentially it drowns out this quieter inner voice, inner knowing, inner feeling. And so the first thing really is quieting the external noise. And we can do that in a lot of ways, right? It could be just getting outside, spending time in nature, going on a hike. Do you ever get like those downloads when you're on a hike? You're just like out in beauty, moving your body, feeling good, and just it feels so clear, right?
On hikes is where I've gotten all of my clearest messages.
Right.
Always.
So,
I go to a hike, feel lost. Things I'm like, what is going on? What is like, my life is ending. I end the hike with a clear knowing what's next. What do I need to do?
So that's a perfect example of something really simple, easy, anyone can do. I think of moving outside in nature is an energetic practice because you're clearing the mind, you're moving the body. It's spiritual to be connected to nature. So really anytime you're getting that mind, body, spirit cleanse, that's going to be the time you're clearest to receive from your intuition. So energy healing does this, Reiki does this, a sound bath will do this, right? But it can be as simple as going on a walk outside without all the distractions and not trying to multitask, not trying to text and work at the same time, like just being with yourself, right? And this is also, of course, what I teach. And in my containers, I teach people how to tune in, how to get more confident in hearing from their own inner voice. More of those techniques you can do if you feel kind of stuck. But there are plenty of easy ways. I mean, you can take yourself out on a little date. Like this is such a fun thing I give as homework. It's like go outside, give yourself 30 minutes on a walk. If you live somewhere like Santa Monica, and just say, I have no destination. I have no goal. I have nothing to do. I have a free 30 minutes. And notice how you navigate, right? This is like activation of your own inner guidance system, your own inner compass. Like notice, ooh, what does it feel like when I say, ooh, I should turn right here. Oh, wait, I want to stop in this shop. That's all your inner knowing. That's all your intuition. So if we give ourselves those moments to be quiet enough, right, and to inquire, we can build it over time.
I love that. I love it. What was the turning point for you where something clicked and you were like, this is what I need to dive into for my own life, but then also make it my purpose to help others do the same?
It's funny because I think of it in a way. There was a moment, and I'll talk about what it was, but I think about it less as one moment and then everything changed. And it's more like the first moment was this opening, this awakening, and then it felt like following this subtle pull in a direction. And it was not about suddenly knowing everything I was going to do and that this and exactly what the life would be. It's okay. Let me tell the story. So for me, I was in a really rock bottom time in my life. Actually, on the outside, it looked really great. I had a good high paying job. I, was like dating this hotshot guy in the circles we were in. I was like doing well for myself in those kind of externally defined criteria. But on the inside, I was really burning out. I was really feeling empty. The relationship was really toxic, but I was having trouble walking away. The work was really not what I thought it would be. I had gone into my undergrad degree was in biomedical engineering because I loved wellness and health and like this, like for the real reasons, right? I ended up consulting in pharma and biotech and becoming so disenchanted by the industry and what I was seeing. And I was like, wait, this is not, my day to day is not making anybody's life better. In fact, it might be making the world worse. So I started to just get so disconnected and so unhappy. And it really spiraled into me being on Adderall for ADHD because I couldn't concentrate and having shoulder pains in my body. At this time, I was also following really rigid health and wellness criteria. I was doing CrossFit, which no shade to CrossFit, but I don't think for my body, it was the best exercise because it's very much this like, always show up, always push yourself, push through the pain. And I was quite literally injuring myself. I was following like a paleo diet, yet my body was kind of all out of whack. I was sort of bloated and like not that fit. Anyway, I tried on a whim going in for a Reiki session. I just felt this like the most subtle little whisper of like, you should just try this. And I had no idea why. I thought it was for my chronic shoulder pain. And when I went in for that session, it opened up in me, it awoke in me my inner guidance. My intuition came back online. So it wasn't just the fact that it healed my shoulder pain, but it was that suddenly I could hear myself again. Like it turned up the volume on that inner voice and it quieted that external noise. And suddenly, like leaving that session, I felt so much more clear. I felt like I could hear, like, not myself think with the chatter talk and the voices telling you all the ways you're messing up and doing everything wrong. It was like this higher self voice of just, this is the next step or what you should do next. So that began to change my life, but it was really like following breadcrumbs all the way to where I am now. So I began studying Reiki just thinking, I don't know why, but I feel pulled to this. I feel drawn to this. I said the words, maybe sometime in another lifetime, I would be a Reiki master. And I truly, at that moment, did not believe it would be my life path in this life. It was so far from what I had created in my life, what I was doing. But I said, maybe in another life, I would be a Reiki master and I would just have clients come out and visit me in Topanga. I would live out in Topanga and people would come see me. And I just said, what if I just learn about this just for myself, right? Just because it feeds my soul, just because I like it. And little did I know I was beginning down this path that would totally redirect me to now living a life of purpose, alignment, thriving, making more money than I made in the corporate job and impacting the world for the better and helping people day to day and feeling like I'm making a difference and all of the things that I think we're all chasing. And that I can really attribute to trusting that subtle pull that my intuition was trying to guide me towards something, right?
Oh, that's beautiful. And I can really relate. I feel like that's how my path has gone as well. Many people ask me that question too, like, when did you? And it's like the small little daily actions. And I think it's incredible for the audience to listen to your story, because many people who I work with, they want to know the whole path before they get started. But like you're sharing, it's just following the pole and taking those little actions.
And this is the big difference that is so hard for us to wrap our brains around when we're not like when if intuition, inner knowing, inner guidance, these terms, if they feel totally foreign to you and you're like, this is not something I was taught. This is not something my parents told me was real. This is not something I believe, like I've ever used. Of course, because nothing in our society has taught us how to live by this, right? The feminine has been suppressed. The divine feminine has been suppressed for thousands of years. And women were told, like, no, that inner knowing, that's not. No, 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 no. You need to listen to authority. You need to listen to, the priest in the church. You can't talk to God. You need to talk through the priest. And you need to, we were told at every level, like, that's not real. And we have been told that logic is king. And logic we're so used to using. And that's where you have, your point A, where you are, point B, where you're going, and you map out every single step. But intuition, it doesn't work like that at all. It's like, wipe that all away. You have where you are, and it knows the next step. Maybe sometimes you have this loose vision, idea, feeling of the end goal. It's like abstract, it's moving, right? It's this general area. And then it just gives you the next stone to hop over to, right? And there's fog in between where you are and where you're going. And so it takes not just like hearing or receiving the next step, but also your willingness to trust and to take a step towards the unknown, which is really scary for a lot of us.
Yeah.
But this is like a whole new way of living that actually is more feminine, right? Is more, for many of us, like for me, beginning to live my life this way was like totally healing my whole being and my whole life. And I know for a lot of women it is, because when we operate off logic alone, that's like forcing us into our masculine side, which we're all meant to be both feminine and masculine, of course. We have our masculine parts, our feminine parts, but if all of our feminine is suppressed and we're told, we don't use it and we only try to use our masculine, as women, we will always burn out. This is why women have twice as high burnout rates as men, and working women are, significantly more likely to experience like clinical burnout. This is why, because we're not trusting our own bodies, our own cycles, our own wisdom, our own feelings of like when we have the energy to go and when we need to retreat back and rest, right? And we're not working with trust and our ability to manifest with God, the universe, divine, like everything that is beyond what we can see and touch and feel. The masculine material, but the feminine is the immaterial. And to try to live in the masculine world, it's like we're taking our strongest, most powerful gifts and we're locking them away. Like we're trying to win a fight with our stronger hand tied behind our back, right? So to unlock this for women is just so, so powerful. It's why, obviously, you can tell I'm so passionate about it. And truly, it's like a movement for the planet, right? To return women to our sovereignty and our wholeness, and for us to be able to create lives that are in alignment with our truth and our natural state of well-being.
Oh, I just love listening to her speak. For someone who is very new to all of this, let's say they come to a session with you.
Sure.
And they have no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
And how it works.
Yeah.
How would you describe it?
Well, okay. So for example, I have a membership called The Overflow. And in that membership, I teach everything that I know in this realm, but really it's as easy as showing up we have a key theme every month, and we have workshops that help us kind of distill down what that theme is, apply it to their life. So for example, I don't know when this is going to go live.
On Thursday, actually.
Oh, okay, amazing. Okay. So for example, on Tuesday, we have our workshop on feminine energetics and intuitive alignment. And we're going to be talking about what it means to align with your feminine energy. And then more practically, like aligning to your cycle every month. And if you don't have a cycle, aligning to the moon cycle and how we can work with that through our life, work, well-being, health and well-being. And we have like real tools and tips that you can apply in that workshop to help start to design your life around your feminine energy. We talk about how intuition plays in, why intuition is essential, and being able to hear and receive and trust your intuition is essential for living in flow with your feminine cycles. And we teach you a little bit of how to do that. So it's very applicable. We do energetic practices. So it means like, you know, there'll be a part where I say like, close your eyes. Okay. And we're going to like feel into your body. We're going to, you know, I use both Reiki, guided visualization, elements from Kabbalah and other energy healing. I blend it all together. So it might be like, close your eyes. We're going to receive golden light down through the body to clear us out. You know, so we're going to be able to tap into the heart space and ask that to awaken and light up, right? So we're getting ourselves into the right mindset and energy to then, when we dive into those tools and exercises, it's from that centered, true place. And then in that membership, we also have a lot of on-demand tools that people can dip into throughout the month, like meditations to use and worksheets to use, right? So that they can begin to embody these principles. And that carries through the whole year with different themes from, you know, trust and surrender to magnetizing abundance. So really, it's all... there's nothing scary about it. There's nothing, it's really like easy to dip a toe and tap in. And that's why I've created this program in that way, so that more and more women can be exposed to this work and realize like, oh, wow, like this is really easy for me to tap in and begin to work with. And for those that feel so excited and want to go deeper and want to do more, of course, I have higher levels of working together where we can do one-on-one sessions and all of that.
Incredible. Do you see any typical themes that women who are wanting something for their life have blocked them?
For like limiting beliefs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Really, I see them kind of as limiting beliefs that are related to every energy center. And so that's part of how I work with people, right? We can sort of sense where they're blocked, and that will be, sometimes I find out based off the limiting belief that's clear. Sometimes it's clear what chakra's blocked, and then I know what limiting beliefs might be coming up. But it's everything from, you know, I'm not good enough to fear of being seen, right? Fear of expressing your truth and who you really are. And like, there's so much fear out there of like leaning into that more spiritual side and what are people going to think of me, right? To fear of rejection. And I see a lot of women have trouble holding boundaries, right? Like maybe they're overgiving to people in their lives because they're afraid of saying no. That really comes back to they're afraid that they won't be loved. They're afraid that people's love is conditional. And that's a fear of rejection, a fear of abandonment, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of deep-seated fears and limiting beliefs that we take on. But this work that I teach is an amazing way to bust through those. That's a huge portion of what I do, is like identifying the limiting beliefs and helping people reframe them. When you do that, I'm sure you have many different tools and ways that you work with mindset. I've found that using energetic healing and energy activation with mindset shifts and reframes, it's like supercharging that. You know how it's like, okay, one thing to just think it mentally and okay, I know this limiting belief, I should be thinking this, but how do you really reprogram it? When we get to the energetic level, it's like we're able to like explode that limiting belief and then totally reprogram in a new one, because the energy, it works through your mental body, your emotional body, your physical body, your spiritual body. Like if you think of our auras that make up the total of who we are, it's really able to clear it out from all of those levels. Sorry, we're getting a little woo with it. But
I love woo.
But it's really powerful for those mindset shifts, because it's like rooting out the when we talk about finding like the root cause, it's like really finding the root cause, like digging out those roots of that weed, right? And totally like putting it in the, what do you call it? Not the recycling, compost, like putting it in the compost, right? And it's totally gone. Versus I think sometimes the mindset work we do is kind of superficial and top level. And it's like trimming, you trim the weed, but then it grows back. So we can really root them out from their origin, right? And get them out. Yeah.
I love that. Do you believe in past lives? Do you believe that it stems from childhood traumas? What's your belief of the causes of these?
I think it's both. I think it's either both. I am sort of like, what's coming to mind is like, I believe in everything, which when you do enough spiritual work, mystical work, and it's just totally how I came into this world, just knowing all that is beyond what we see and feel. Like I remember from such a young age, just knowing like knowing that what God feels like, knowing what it felt like to be with God before I came here, and knowing when I feel that feeling again, which is how I feel in like the energy work, and when I feel return to self and true love, like that's how I felt in that first Reiki session. It felt like, oh, I'm touching back to this feeling that I know this feeling. It's the connection with God, right? And I think when you move through life with knowing, oh, there's so much more than this, and I've had many mystical things happen. Like my mom always talks about, there was like several times in my life there was big accidents and I was somehow like totally unscathed. Wow. Like she thought that there was a time a car crashed into the back of our car, and it was a car, they don't make these anymore. It was like a Volvo in the 90s that the back seat faced backwards. And I was facing backwards, and a snowplow came through the back of the car and was like this far from my face. And I was totally fine. And there was another time I like crashed my bike going down this huge mountain. I was like 5 years old with training wheels going with the big kids, like crashed my bike, skidded down the whole mountain, had like gravel in my cheeks, ended up like totally fine. Another time my hand got stuck in an escalator. I don't know. Every time my mom thought I was going to have broken bones, all this stuff, I was always unscathed. And she had, only now when I got into all this work, she would say like, I think you've had these really powerful guardian angels protecting you because like you were meant to make big impact here, and like you have a mission, and they were protecting you. And I felt that. I still feel that. And when you just have these experiences where there's more than just like the physical, I think I've forgotten even what the original question was, but
I love where you went.
But past lives, yes, that was the question. Past lives, yes. Childhood trauma, yes. What I find is when I look at my VIP level clients, we look at their astrological charts. I'm trained in astrology. We look at natal charts. And I think that tells us a lot about who we came in here to be and what we came to this life to experience. I don't think it's deterministic. I never tell people, you're going to get divorced or you're going to have this like bad thing happen to you here. Or, I think that's all like, we don't have to put any of that on people. But I think there's themes and energies that are going to come through in our life that we're meant to experience, to grow, right? And to evolve, spiritually evolve, psycho-spiritually. And we can have some ideas of what those things are going to be. Some people that are really into past lives, it's like, yeah, they probably have a lot to learn from digging in there, right? So you can trust what you feel called to. If you feel like you have a lot of childhood trauma to work through, yeah, go to a therapist, work through that, do some internal family systems. Like IFS is like the overlap of energy work, astrology and therapy. And so I think you can always trust what you feel called to, what you feel pulled to, that there's really powerful healing and evolution for you there.
I love that. I'm super curious if you could tell us some stories from your life where you felt these massive shifts happen from this energy healing.
Yeah. So I guess I talked about a little bit about like when my intuition woke back up, and that it started to direct me towards following to study Reiki, which at first was just for fun, just for me, just for my personal growth. Like I didn't think it was going to be my career. That ended up leading me down a path studying astrology, Kabbalah, going back to school and getting my master's from Columbia in spirituality, mind, body, psychology. And so really it led to like this whole new exploration, learning, and then eventually my own business. But there was so much more than that unfolding at the same time, because as these changes happen, it's like the shift happens within, and then it begins to manifest into every area of your life. So at that point, I mentioned a little bit about my rock bottom. It was, I totally attribute it to my intuition waking back up, my higher self coming back into connection, my heart being healed in so many ways, that I was finally able to, like, my response to this person, this romantic partner who had been very toxic with me, before all of that happened, I had this like anxious attachment, right? And like we were on again, off again. He would cheat on me. I would try to forgive him, get back together. I was like, there was some fear that I was so afraid of losing him, of him not choosing me. Now looking back on it, it's so silly because his love was not deserving. You know, it was a toxic match and he didn't treat me right. But at the time it felt like, you know, all I could think about was, what was he doing? Was he going to text me? Who was he with? And everything I would do to try to act like I'd gotten over it was only really from my own, like it was all kind of a performance. I would be like, you know, out at the club with my friends, taking pictures, looking so sexy and being like, I don't care, I'm single. But it was all just to perform, hoping he would see it and think like, oh, I fucked up. Oh, I'm jealous, right? And after this work began, the energy work started to heal me. It's like suddenly he would reach out and, you know, hit me up and want to hang out. And I would just, like, I could just take a breath and be like, no. Like, I would rather spend time with me than you, right? And like, wow. Actually, I just would rather sit in here doing my Reiki or whatever. You know, at the time I was like, so that was like, I love to do, or just be drawing or doing whatever. Like, it was that regaining of like, to be comfortable with myself, to be in love with myself, my own life, to want to spend time with me, that somebody else to ask me for my time was like, it was like, and suddenly like I just was able to walk away from him. And it totally ended with him, you know, of course, like the second I started really being over it, he's like, wait, no, like I love you, blah, blah, blah. And I just like could look at him and just be like, no, we are not meant to be together. Like, please go live your life. Like I'm moving on. And to say that with total confidence and truth. And the crazy thing is, right after all of that, I met the man that is now my husband. And it was from that state of like, I was so happy being on my own, being single. I loved myself so deeply. That's when your soulmate comes in, right? When you're not looking, you're not searching, you're just so embodied in your own being and your fullness. And you're like truly, truly just, yeah, comfortable, loving, thriving in yourself. And it was then that like my soulmate came into the picture. And even at the beginning when he wanted to hang out, I knew he was the one like really quickly. But even despite of that, sometimes he's like, oh, you want to come over? And I'd be like, you know, not tonight. Like I'm comfy in my house. Like, and you know, we hung out plenty, but it was just such a change of rootedness in self and comfort in self and trust in self first that I think a lot of us are missing. And then of course that will manifest, whether it's in a romantic relationship, whether it's at work, you're always doing what everybody needs from you and not, you know, like honoring your own boundaries, or whether it's, you know, in partnerships, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, like getting into the business with the wrong people and not being able to walk away, whatever it is, right? Like to regain that confidence in your being.
Yeah. Such important work because our relationships affect us more than anything. And when you gain that level of self-love and know what you're worth and want to spend time with yourself, it happened for you. It changes everything.
Yes, definitely. I mean, to me, it's like the relationship was like one manifestation of the changes happening within, right? Like one physical manifestation was like, okay, from the outpouring of my own energetic being, like then it's going to impact anybody that's interrelating with it, right? But, also in my health and well-being, I started trusting myself on, does like the CrossFit heavy workout sound good when I'm on my period and like my body's hurting? Or, I was just like, my body feels like doing like a yoga flow, And I started just kind of experimenting more with different ways of moving and being a little bit more in flow. And I know there's a fine line between like holding yourself to commitments and pushing yourself. But I think it's also important to realize like our bodies have so much wisdom in what feels good for us and what's serving of us. And it's so individual, right? Yeah. And I started realizing once I started weaving in other things, spin classes, yoga, that like these high weight CrossFit workouts, it just was not it for my physical body. Me personally. There's some women that like it is it for them, and I love that for them. That was not the truth for me. Even in diet, like, people talk about intuitive eating, but really it's just like you can learn everything about what's healthy. And of course, there's 1,000 different systems and schools of thought. And do you want to care about macros? Do you want to care about ingredients? Do you want to care about calories? Whatever. And you can learn it all. And I did. And it was once I kind of like let it all go and just started trusting my own decisions of like what would be most nourishing to my body at a given moment. And if you can really tap in and tune in, I went from feeling overweight, physical body pain, just like kind of like bloated, puffy. I was just not at my height physically, to just like dropping like to my, what I think is really like my natural slim size, but where I still feel like toned and good and like, but also just, it just felt like everything was so easy to just take care of. People ask me sometimes like, oh, what do you do? You're slim, whatever. I'm like, literally nothing. Like I do not nothing. I take care of myself, but it's not one thing. It's like, I'm just in relationship with my body. I listen to her. I know what she likes, what she doesn't like. I'm trying to just let it be between me and her and not like all of the schools of thought out there. So anyway, so many different ways that this can manifest in your life. And I hate to say it's not like some, silver bullet cure all that happens instantly. It takes time. But truly those like energetic changes within, your chakra system, it aligns to every area of life. So when you make those changes within it, it will slowly manifest into your life around you in more and more ways.
Are there little daily habits? You already spoke about, moving your body in nature and different things that people can do to tune into their intuition, which is really how you've developed this entire life, right? It's like tuning in in all these areas of your life. We all tend to work on autopilot for the most part. Yep. Do you have any daily habits or potentially shifts that someone can make to get out of that autopilot and tune into their body frequently?
Yes. I mean, it's so silly because people say this all the time and it's like, it feels like, okay, but it's literally through your conscious intention. It can be as simple as taking, a few deep breaths, like connecting into your heart center, and really like, I mean, you can do a check-in with yourself in 3 breaths at any point in the day. I would say for newbies who are developing, having a morning practice or an evening practice, or just making sure at some point in the day that you can try to be consistent, it will be helpful to spend a little more than a 3-second breath check-in as you're developing this. So it could be that you block out 10 minutes in your morning or in your evening or while you eat lunch. You get quiet. Maybe you journal a couple pages. Maybe you put on a meditation, guided meditation. Maybe you just hold your hands on your heart and you breathe and you imagine being washed over with golden light. Golden light is always cleansing, right? And you can just check in. If you do it in the morning, you can ask like, you know, how will you use me today? Like, you know, what would be the best next step towards my highest path, right? And just see what comes through intuitively. And maybe like you let that be how you define your to-do list, right? Instead of getting right into the like, oh, okay, I have this meeting, I got to finish this project, I got to do that. Like, what if you just took a second first to like check in with you and be like, oh, what would be like of our highest to do today, right? Because maybe it's like calling up your friend and, you know, going to the beach. Like maybe that's what's of highest for you in that day. So letting like that be the driver first. Or if you do it at night, you can intuitively check in on like what was most nourishing about today and what intention do I want to set for tomorrow, right? Like those little check-ins can be a good way of beginning to build this relationship.
I love that. Every morning I say, where will you have me go? What will you have me do? What will you have me say? And to who?
Yes.
You've probably heard that one.
Yes, I love
Is it
that.
from something in Miracles?
Course of Miracles.
Course of Miracles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's beautiful. And that's more, yes, that's like a good, you know, few steps if people want to, that's perfect. Yeah.
You today have a family.
Yes.
I would love to first know how you met your husband and then also your energy. I know that the listener can hear this. I can feel it. Your energy, you live it. You don't just preach it, you actually live it. And your energy is just so calming. The way you speak, the way you are. You can just feel it. And you have children, correct?
Yeah.
And I know for many mothers, I work with many mothers, and being a mother is a challenging task. Also, I would love to know how you stay within this calm and peace as you're raising children.
Yeah, great question, because you're absolutely right. It is such a juggle. First, how I met my husband, it felt like our orbits were beginning to come into intersection with one another, because I remember like the first brush with him. So we went to the same college. We both went to USC for undergrad. And I knew of his name. I would always hear this name. My friends, some of my friends would talk about their friend Ryan Emmons. Emmons. I do not remember once meeting him, but it was like a name that I knew.
Wow.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
And like I never thought anything. It was just like, oh, Ryan Emmons. And it was just the name I knew. And then this is all a few years after college. As I told you, I was finally letting go of this toxic relationship I'd been in. And it was like the first time was my sister. I'm on the phone with my sister and she goes, hey, I was at a party with this guy, Ryan Emmons. He says he knows you. And I was like, I don't know him, but I'm like, oh yeah, I know of him. She goes, oh, he says he knows you. And I'm like, that's okay, whatever. You know, I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah. And
then next thing, one of my friends from college, they move in together. And then I hear his name again. Oh, I moved in with Ryan Emmons and da, da, da. And I'm like, who is this Ryan Emmons guy? I even went to their housewarming and I don't even remember, like, at their housewarming, I brought my ex to their housewarming. I don't even remember seeing him, meeting him. Like, it was like, it couldn't be, it was like I was blinded to it, right?
Yeah.
And then after I was finally like letting the ex go, it was like, I remember this moment. I was at a party. He walked in the door and I just remember like, it was like the first time I ever saw him. I don't know if it literally was, but it was in my consciousness, right? And he walks in and instantly I was like, who is that guy? Like, it was just this instant attraction. And all my friends are like, what are you talking about? That's Ryan Emmons. Like, you guys have been, like, you're like, they're like, you've never met him? And I truly believe it was like the universe bringing us together at the exact right time, that we were both ready. We were both, because once we like got started, it was very clear that it was, you know, gonna be it. So I feel very blessed that the way it all worked out. And then now we shared two beautiful little girls. They're 5 and 3. We both really value family, and we kind of knew we were like young parents in LA. When I had my first daughter, I was 29. It's funny, depending on where you live, you'll either be like LOL, that's not young. Or if you live in LA, like my midwives, I had home births for both my babies. And when I gave birth to my first, my midwife said, "You're the youngest mom we've ever had."
Wow.
And they've been working for 12 years.
Yeah, in LA, it is young. I'm 29 right now.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. I love that age. Great age.
I'm turning 30 in a couple of months. So,
okay. Yeah. 30 is amazing. It's like 30 is the new 20. So don't even,
I'm excited.
I don't think you're,
yeah.
But you know, sometimes people are like, oh, turning 30.
Yeah.
And you have so much time family wise because most of the moms I meet are like 5 to 10 years older than me with the same age kids. So in LA, it's just all kind of delayed. But we kind of actually got pregnant with our first a little bit by accident, but it was because we were open to starting our family soon-ish. It started a little quicker than we anticipated. And I would say what it means to be a mom and an entrepreneur, I am like radically protective of my own time and taking time away from my daughters to a level that I never imagined. When I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Even when I met my husband, I told him I'm gonna stop working. I'm gonna be a stay-at-home mom. And as I was pregnant and actually launching my own business, it was very evident that probably wasn't going to be the case because I had found a calling and a mission in this world. But I wasn't really sure how it was all going to look. And what we have been able to come up with is a setup where we have essentially like full-time help with our children. I work probably about half time, and I have the other half where I can have some freedom for myself, where I can take care of myself. This is also being an entrepreneur and being radical about how I set up my days and, you know, not taking on too much work. Like if I filled my 40-hour week with work, I would be burnt out. I wouldn't be able to show up for my clients. So to me, it's like to live this, as you said, I have to take care of my energy first. So for me, having, you know, 2 or 3 days of client work and the other 2 to like do whatever I gotta do is part of my life's work.
I love to hear this.
Yeah. We gotta reclaim it. Like as women, otherwise motherhood, if you don't have support, it is a 24-hour job. So to do a 24-hour job and also do a 40-hour job, like personally, I do not have the energetic capacity for that. There are women who are like the hustler, the grinder, and they actually can really thrive off that. God bless them. I would be burnt toast. I would be.
And I think many mothers are.
Yes.
And you sharing that, having the energy and the wholesomeness and the human you are, sharing that that's how you live your life, you've chosen to live that way, allows permission for others to do the same. Because oftentimes the traditional would be, oh, you can't do that.
Right.
But you actually can.
I am very radically non-traditional. Yeah. We hire our full-time help. And I also know there's a lot of things. I'm
excited to hear this because I want to be a mom one day. And I've thought, like, how do I do that?
There's a lot of ways to do it. And it looks different for everyone. And also I know people say things like, well, we can't afford this. We can't afford that. And I know that we're also, you know, there's a certain level of privilege. But I also think that sometimes I see people out there like making a lot of excuses. I once talked to a friend, and she's amazing. I love her. But she was kind of saying like, oh, well, I can't work because the kids are in the house and I can't focus. And I was like, oh, you know, well, why don't you just tell your husband for your mental health, like you guys just need a little help, even if it's some part-time with a nanny. And, you know, thinking like, and she goes, oh no, we have a nanny. And they're just in the house and I can't focus. I'm like, you have a nanny and you're telling me like you have these excuses? I'm like, hold on. And that's when I realized like we can just make excuses and make excuses and make excuses until the end of time. At some point, you got to gain back your ability to consciously create your life. So we talked with her about why don't you set that one day a week, the nanny takes the kids out to the park every morning. You know, you have the house to yourself. Another day, you go out to a coffee shop every morning, right? So you can design your life to support you. And you can do that with designing, you know, with preschool schedules or daycare schedules or whatever. And like seeing how your work fits in that, but also leaving some buffer for that time for you. So there's a million ways to do it. I am, it's also, I think of it as an investment. Like I know a lot of women would say like hours paying a babysitter, that they're not actively generating income. They would see that as somehow wasted, right? But we got to totally like break that whole thought process, right? It's like, what is the value of your well-being and how much can you invest total, right, to keep yourself well? And then a part of that is going to be you generating income, but part of that is you caring for yourself, right? And filling your own cup first.
Yeah. Because what's really the purpose of life if you're miserable living
Of course. We're not just robots made
Yeah.
to work at every, we're not like machines.
Yeah.
We got to enjoy it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you for giving all of us permission to create the life that works for us in whatever way that looks.
Yeah.
Because there's so many rules, it seems, and ways you're allowed and not allowed to live your life. But you've really created that for your own, and showing that to others allows them to do the same.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one final question for you, but first I would love to know for all of the listeners how they can further connect with you and learn from you, because I know that you have so much to dive deeper into.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at @forwardwgrace, forward with Grace. But really, I would like to offer you something for your audience. That membership that I mentioned, the Overflow, I would love to gift your audience a free month in there if they want to, just get to like experience it for themselves. I feel like that is actually the best way to
beautiful.
dip a toe, is just like dive in and like feel the energy in there and feel how it makes you feel, right? So I would love to offer that as a special for your audience.
Thank you. We'll put the link in the description below.
Perfect.
So people can sign up. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. My podcast is called Challenge Your Norm. And any first thought that comes to you as to how you would like to challenge the listener to create some better life in whatever way comes to you.
I challenge you to throw away the path that, someone handed down to you that you need to follow. If it's like climbing the corporate ladder or following some path that somebody else laid out, I challenge you to like crumple up that piece of paper, throw it away, and ask yourself, what would your own unique path that only you can walk, what would that be? And start walking it.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you so much for coming on here today. I loved this conversation so much. It was beautiful.
Such a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast on my Challenge Your Norm podcast. If you enjoyed it, I would so appreciate it if you would share it with a friend who you think could find it useful as well. Join my community if you feel called to, and subscribe so that you never miss another episode here on my Challenge Your Norm podcast. I hope you go out there and have a beautiful day. And as always, remember that in order for you to grow, you have to challenge your norm. Bye.